We're going to give it a couple more minutes here. We had 33 people register for this webinar. It looks like 16 of the 33 or 35 are on, so if you don't mind, I know everybody's time is valuable. We see some people adding on, so we'll give you a couple of extra minutes here. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. We're recording this live from Richmond, Virginia. It's been a rainy evening, a rainy day. Now it's just about overcast. I hope everybody's weather for this fall that started a couple of days ago is going well, and everybody is looking forward to starting a very strong fourth quarter, which is beyond us. Coming up on Monday, fourth quarter, good time to push revenue for the fall, especially snow income. Does everybody have, everybody sees the chat box and the question box? Everybody's able to use those functions with no problem? And again, if you could just type in there that you can use those, I'd appreciate it. Okay, I'm getting good audio. Can somebody just confirm? Okay, I think somebody just confirmed. Good, good. Give it a couple more minutes here and we'll begin. Michelle Fletcher, I see you're on there. Thank you for joining us today. Can you type into the chat box or the question box and just acknowledge and let us know that you can hear me? Did you hear me when I said? Okay. 2:05, so we'll get the presentation started here. Lori, let's just do a sound check. I just want to make sure, Lori, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, good. And functionality-wise, all our guests are on? Everybody can hear us, Lori, for a sound check?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, let's get into the presentation. Bill, are you able to hear us? And it doesn't sound like Bill can. Okay. Okay, folks, let's get into the presentation today. So today's presentation is session 1 of 2 presentations. The presentation is called Finding the Business and Financial Balance for Snow Business Success. When I do a presentation for everybody, I like to start my presentations off with a little bit of housekeeping. And that housekeeping statement is, last year I've celebrated 40 years within the landscape industry. Was formerly a landscape business owner and subsequently became an executive within the landscape industry, working for several large companies. And essentially today, I help all size companies, growth-oriented, progressive companies, and companies simply looking to improve and grow their organizations throughout North America. I am not a self-proclaimed group guru. I am not, although considered by some as a subject matter expert, at the end of the day, in my heart and in my mind, I'm a landscaper like you. So I've had some very good successes in my 40-year careers. I've had some failures in my career, but what I've done all along the line is I've learned from my experiences. So for today's presentation, I would consider this a 10,000-foot overview of of finding financial balance and success within your organization. I will tell you that with the companies I interact with, some of these companies are as small as 400,000, and some of them are as large as 20,000. In this presentation, if you might think that some of the things are elementary in here, I will tell you from my interactions with my clients, I have some clients that are very large and actually do not operate their business model with some of the things that we're going to be discussing today. So what I also will suggest to everybody is, if there's one touch point, if there's one bit of information that you can take away from this presentation and apply to your snow business, I have done my job very, very well. So I'd like everybody kind of keep that in mind as we go through the presentation. So to start off today, just briefly again about GreenMark Consulting Group. We're located in Richmond, Virginia. We have clients throughout North America. We use a very holistic approach in how we deal with our clients. We do not believe that one size fits all. So in this holistic process, we go into companies and we help clients essentially develop solutions specific to their company. There's a lot of information that's out there and available within the industry through technology and social media, through our great associations at the state level and the national level, through other consultants and coaches like myself. But at the end of the day, it's what really works for your company and applies to your company that's critical. So on our presentation page here, we have our three websites, greenmarkgroup.com, greenmarkgroupcoaching.com, and the greenmarkbootcamp.com. These are all different platforms we interact with our clients. You'll see within this presentation, we're not going to sell you very heavy. We're just looking to build a partnership with you, get you to know a little bit about myself, my business partners, and what we do. And if there's any way that we can help you, we would certainly love to work with you. We have some great sponsors that sponsor our programs. So for today, Arthur J. Gallagher is one of our sponsors. Arthur J. Gallagher is an insurance company out of Jersey. Is the strategic relationship that we have with a gentleman named Bill Webb. I believe Bill is with us today. Arthur J. Gallagher is a national company, and they have a very, very good snow program designed for helping contractors mitigate risk in snow services. Bill's based out of the Jersey area. I believe it's the northern New Jersey area. He's a great guy. You can call him at any time. His phone number's on here. His web address is on here, his email address, and the company's website. But they will be able to meet with you, have a consultative meeting to look at how you handle your risk management within your snow business model. They're a great strategic partner, so I would welcome you to reach out to Bill Webb and Arthur J. Gallagher and talk about how they can help you. And again, they have multiple snow contractors throughout the United States that utilize their services. So Bill, thank you very much, and Arthur J. Gallagher and Company for being our sponsor today. We have a second sponsor today. That sponsor is the De-Icing Depot. Ron Ekman is the owner of De-Icing Depot. If you go to any of the trade shows around the country, you will see Ron. Ron is an innovator today in creating solutions for contractors with liquid anti-icing and de-icing products and application equipment. Ron also distributes bulk salt and bagged material throughout the United States. Ron's a very approachable guy, very knowledgeable guy. He's been a strategic partner with me for 25 years in the contracting business, and he's one of these guys that, you place an order with him, he delivers on that order. Ron also, we have a contest, a raffle that we're going to be having, so everybody who's attended this presentation and who's attending next Wednesday's presentation, everybody will get, name will get thrown into a hat, and Ron is giving away a free spreader, sidewalk spreader for putting products down. I believe it's probably a $300,000 or $400,000 value. So one lucky participant with our webinars will be lucky to have that. So I suggest if you're looking for any type of knowledge or information, or possibly a new supplier in de-icing chemicals, equipment, Ron Ekman and De-Icing Depot is the people to go see, and we thank Ron for being our sponsor on this webinar. Good. So we're gonna get right into this a little bit, and we're gonna raise our hands here, and there's gonna be a question. I'd like people to use their chat box and just kind of in the chat or question box, if you just kind of list out one pain point. Tell us one pain point that you have in your snow business currently. I'd like to see some ideas what people are saying. So if you could just take a minute and just type something into the chat box as a pain point in your business, I appreciate that. Okay. Lori, are you seeing? I'm not seeing any pain points. Are you seeing that on your screen?
I can.
What are some of the things that are
time spent on jobs, insurance, customers.
Hold on 1 second. So time spent on jobs. Go ahead. What else?
Finding good staff.
Insurance, staff. Yes. What else?
Equipment damage, collections.
Equipment damage and collections. Okay. What else?
That's it so far.
Okay, well, those are some good pain points for people. What we'll do is any of these pain points you have, some of them might be addressed in our presentation today. Some of them might be presented in our presentation next week. Our presentation next week, folks, is more operational based. So I believe you'll get a little bit of knowledge out of both of these things. These pain points, if they're not addressed today, we'd be certainly willing to specifically answer any of them with you and work with you at no obligation. You can email us at either scohen@greenmarkgroup.com, and we'll give you that at the end. And Lori will make some notes. And Lori, if you can make a note and just who gave those pain points, if you just note the names of the people, we can reach out to you and have a specific conversation one-on-one and talk about it. But at the end of the day, everybody has pain points in running their business. We did this presentation a few weeks ago for the Ohio Landscape Contractors Association. There were about 55 different snow contractors in that room. And I will tell you, while there was a lot of commonality in the pain points, there was also a lot of different pain points that each person had. But there was a lot of commonality across the board in all the different size companies that were there. So I appreciate everybody's comments with that, and thank you. So in building a effective snow business, what we essentially want to do is you want to build a balanced business, a well-balanced business model. And a well-balanced business model has two facets to it. The first facet is the financial side of it, and the second facet of it is the operational side of it. And the reason we say that is with the seasonality of the snow business and Mother Nature controlling what actually happens and how we perform not only on the service delivery, but how we perform it from an execution standpoint as far as operational execution. We want to find the ideal balance on how to build a snow company that is self-supportive and essentially keeps the lights on in the wintertime, even if it doesn't snow. So we're going to get into that a little bit today in our presentation. So, one of the things I like to talk to my guests is, the difference between a good company and a great company. And does anybody want to take a guess and kind of put into the chat box, what do they think the difference between a good snow company or a good company and a great company is? And Lori, if you could just kind of tell me what some of those responses are, I'd appreciate that. We have any responses, Lori, from any of the attendees?
Give it a second.
Okay.
Sustainable, a good company, staying ahead of ICE.
Okay. Those are great things. Those are great comments. And Lori, I'm going to ask you to record those. But here's the real difference. The real difference is a good company fixes the problems for a client, and a great company solves the problems for a client. And I'll tell you, from experience, what I've learned over the course of my time for the first 12 or 15 years of being a business owner, and some of this might resonate with you as business owners or managers or employees. I was very good at fixing problems. If a customer would call us and say they had a problem, we would typically work expeditiously to satisfy that customer's needs and or complaints. And many times we did so better than originally intended. In the so a lot of good companies, and there are a lot of good companies in the snow industry and landscape industry, they do that very well. And remember, a good company can still have problems and still be successfully culturally and operationally and financially. But the real differentiator is the great company solves the problems after they fix it. So they're taking the time to fix the problem, make the customer happy, but then they're going back to determine why did the problem exist in the first place and how do they solve it. And when you look at our industry as a whole, folks, our industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I believe at last numbers were about 78 to 80 billion-dollar industry. It employs many people. If you really look at the demographic, there's a lot of good companies out there, but there's only a few great companies. And some of that is evidenced, when we look at our surveys and some of our national magazines and the top 100 companies or the top 50 aspiring companies. You'll see that not a lot, and those lists are very subjective, folks. But you'll see that it takes a lot of work to build a great company. There's a lot of ebb and flow in the process, and a lot of challenges that occur. So, building a company, great snow company. Today's learning objective, as I said in my introduction, it's a high-level overview. There's not enough time, in an hour or an hour and 15-minute presentation to go over everything and what it takes to run a great company or address everybody's concerns. But the idea is that you take one thing away from today's presentation, and what you take away, it needs to be applied strategically to your organization. So a lot of times what we do in our industry is we read something, we hear something, whether we're reading it in a book or a magazine, or a friend of ours is doing it, we instinctively try to apply it to our business, and a lot of times it fails. And the reason it fails is because better than 75% of all execution fails because of lack of understanding and onboarding. So again, I want everybody to kind of take a deep breath today and just look at the information we're presenting and saying, what one or two things can we take away from this presentation and strategically apply to our organization to make our organization better. So the next question is, I like to ask a lot of questions. What type of snow contractor are you? I mean, have you ever sat down and said to yourself, who really am I as a snow contractor? So, one of the things that I've noticed in the industry is that a lot of people want to plow snow, and they tend to want to go after a lot of different things all at the same time. We have a little bit of a different philosophy in our engagement processes for our clients, and what we say is, look, do what you do good. Identify your niche and stick with it. Manage within your capabilities, your resources. If you only have so much trucks and so many laborers, then don't take on more than you can actually handle. And what we tend to do in this situation is we tend to take on a lot more than we can handle, and this is where a lot of contractors run into problems. So the big thing is identify your niche. Okay, work within the capabilities and knowledge of your resources, and this is part of early season planning. One of the things I see a lot of people on social media talking about or putting up pictures of their snow plows on their trucks, and they're all excited to waiting for snow, and that's great. And I pose the question, Well, how much time have you really put into, planning for snow? Putting the plow on is all one part of it, but how much time have you really planned on it? Now, I'll tell you from experience, we're here, almost October 1st. We're doing a, snow presentation this week and next week, and there's some other people out there doing snow presentations. But the reality of it is, we started doing our snow presentations back in early September, and we believe, and from my experience, we start talking about snow in the companies that I've managed and the clients I work with. We started talking about snow in some regions geographically late August and sometimes in early September. So the other thing is understanding the different types of contracts. As I travel around the country, geographically, the types of contracts that are used are different in all markets. So understanding the advantages and disadvantages of each contract is important. So we're going to talk a little bit about that this afternoon. The next thing is understanding, again, I said, how do those contracts fit into your market? And if they don't fit into your market, can you make them fit? So for an example, in some markets where a fixed price contract for the season might be a norm, in other markets in the country it might not be, because maybe in those markets it's strictly time and materials, or a per push or per occurrence type of, which is similar, but it's a per push or per occurrence type event. It doesn't mean potentially that your client wouldn't be receptive to buying an insurance package, essentially, of a seasonal price, but it's something that you have to do to educate your client, on that. So we're gonna dig into this a little bit. Next thing is how do you become the clear and obvious choice to your potential clients and remain the preferred vendor? We talk a lot about, value proposition and what makes your company different than everybody else's. I'm going to tell you, in 40 years, I've noticed one thing, and maybe you folks have noticed this too. If we're in the landscaping business, we all cut grass, we build patios, we plow snow, we probably all tell our clients that we're very proactive in our communication, but at the end of the day, there's so many more good companies than there are great companies. So there's gaps within that process. So what we want to do, and what we will discuss here today, and what you want to do is you want to build a value proposition for your client that allows you to become the clear and obvious choice to your potential clients, and then your existing clients, you want to remain the preferred vendor to them based on your service delivery model. The trusted advisor is a term that sometimes we will use. Moving on here, identifying your niche and sticking to it. And you see my little friend in the corner with question marks. I've made the mistake as a snow contractor going after a lot more early on than I can handle. And I will tell you from experience, it really created some challenges for me, and it also created some failures. Next week in our next presentation operationally, I actually share some of the successes and also some of the failures early on in building out my snow model. But really, in identifying your niche, you've got to ask yourself some questions. And a lot of what I do with my clients, again, or anybody I interact with, is I talk a lot about thought process. A lot of what we do is thinking. It involves asking yourselves questions. And depending on how those questions are answered, it's potentially connected to a risk and reward scale, which will drive how you make a decision. So one of the first questions I like to ask is, what do we like to do? I mean, even within the snow industry, there are things that some people like to do, and there's some things that people don't like to do. One of the things of getting up in the morning is you have to enjoy going to work. What we like to say in GreenMark, we say, we like to wake up happy and go home happy, and on Sundays look forward to going back to work on Mondays. The driver of that is, do we enjoy what we do? So it's the same thing in building out your snow model. You have to figure out what you like to do and what you don't like to do. And I will tell you, folks, there's some things that are very clear delineators in the snow industry that make people happy and make people frustrated, or give people success, or give them or create failure, essentially. So, so here we talk about, what do we like to do? So examples of what do we like to do? Some people like to do Class A office parks, office buildings. Some people like to do small shopping centers and strip malls. There's some contractors out there who have a lot of big iron and a lot of push boxes, and they like to do big stuff. They like to do large shopping centers and malls and distribution centers. And some people like to do hospital and educational. Multi-families, complexes, apartment buildings, and HOAs. Some people actually like to do subcontracting for other people because they say, you know what, I don't want to get involved in going out and finding work every year, but I'll be a loyal contractor to you. All you have to do is pay me X amount of dollars per hour for my trucks and my equipment and my labor, and I'll do whatever you want me to do. And some people like to actually work for self-performing companies, doing so a lot of these integrated service type companies, they like working for them. And some people, like to do self-performing versus managed. So some people, a lot of companies today are building models where they just manage the snow operations and they find the subcontractors, versus self-performing it. So those are a couple different areas within the snow that you need to ask yourself, what is your real niche. The next thing is, what do I, and when I say I, me personally, if I'm the owner of the company or the manager of the company, and we as a company, what do we not want to do? That's almost as figuring out, as important as figuring out what you enjoy doing, is figuring out what you don't enjoy doing. And again, you really have to sit down, you have to ask yourself these questions, because when I take groups or attendees at these seminars through this exercise, and we give them an index card to fill it out, it's very surprising the results we get. And even if we have multiple people coming from a company, we'll have some people within the same company say, one thing, and some people in another company in the same company will say something different. So they're really not aligned. So for an example, sidewalks. Some people consider sidewalks the bane of their existence. It's labor intensive. It's very, very time sensitive. It potentially has some risks to it that people don't like. So sidewalks seem to be an area that people feel is not something that they want to do. The next is working for snow management companies, doing third-party work. Some people love these relationships, and some people really do not enjoy these relationships. And the reasons why, a seasoned snow contractor who's worked with snow management companies knows some of the reasons. Residential work, the residential client tends to talk more than the commercial client. They tend to be more demanding. So if you're a commercial company, most commercial snow companies like to stick with residential. Most commercial companies like to stick with commercial snow, and a lot of residential companies like to stick with residential. There is some crossover in there. Residential, I know some landscape snow contractors who do residential work, and that's all they do, and they do it very, very well, and they make a lot of money with it. So, excuse me, sip of water. Next is any job where there's too many bosses. I mean, there's nothing more than doing snow at a condominium development, and you work for a board of directors, but then you work for 200 residents who all think their driveways and their walkways should get shoveled first, because they have to get to work first in the morning, and their job is more important than their neighbors. It's very, very annoying, and it's a challenge. Now, I'll tell you that in my career, I've done a good job working with those type of clients, and actually enjoy working with those type of clients, because I build a foundation of understanding of how those jobs are going to be performed, and for the most part it works relatively well. So identifying what works well for you, what do you think's a good part of your niche, and then identifying what is something that you might not want to do. So the next is where do I have the most experience? What do I like doing the best? So only you know your true level of experience. I can't tell you that. Your employees really can't tell you that. It's your own confidence that tells you what your abilities are. It's the resources within your organization, and resources are your people talent. It's your equipment, resources. It's potentially financial resources. Do you have the financial wherewithal to deal with the ebbs and flows of the seasonality of snow? So if you have a really snowy winter, do you have the cash flow to replenish materials fast and to pay payroll within its pay cycle and so on and so forth? So again, these are things that you have to answer. But what I suggest is if you make yourself a list, and this is a good team building exercise. If you make a list and you use a whiteboard and you say to yourself, what are the things that we like to do as a snow company? What are the things that we don't like to do as a snow company? And what are some of the things that we think we have the most experience in? It's a great way to create collaboration and synergy among your team to really drill down and see how others are thinking and really try to define or possibly refine your business model. Okay. So my biggest suggestion is figure it out before you commit yourself. One of the biggest things that I see with contractors is they don't like to do the planning part of it. They don't like to go through this exercise, and what they do is they take on obligations that sometimes are a challenge. So before you commit yourself to a relationship that potentially could be a very good relationship, a financially rewarding relationship, and a relationship that can grow, make sure before you commit yourself that you ask yourself those questions and figure out the strengths and weaknesses essentially of your organization. So good. Lori, we'll take a quick intermission here and just ask anybody, do they have any questions up to this point? If anybody wants to just put some questions into that chat box for Lori, you can answer those questions, present them to me.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions? I'll take that as a no, Lori.
Not so far.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so we'll continue on here. So once you identify your niche, one of the keys is sticking to it. So identifying what is my target market would be the next thing. So while you might look at the market and say, look, my market is anybody who needs my services. I have a truck, I have a plow, they have a need. That's my target market. And what we say is no, we need to really narrow that target market down. And there's different ways to do that. So how do you break your market into, more specific targeted and service segments? So it's target audience essentially, and then geographic region is another way to do that. So we'll give you some examples here. So the first thing I say is examine your capabilities. So capabilities, again, are going to be financial capabilities, your equipment resources that you own, potential service providers that you might partner with, and financial resources. Look at a 10-mile radius from your facility, and a lot of times when you do that, it'll give you the answer of your target audience within that market, because you're going to be able to objectively look at that 10-mile circle and say, does my audience fall between there? And if so, how can I pinpoint a strategic goal and objective to better target that? So what we suggest to our clients essentially is you get a large oversized map of your market. You put a pin on your locations or your satellite or your branches. You create a 10-mile radius. You identify what type of work you have within that existing market, and then you look at the potential that for expansion or growth within that market, and then you specifically target that as your first approach. So that would be, your what we call the low-hanging fruit. That's what you would want to go after first. And then, with a fruit tree that's ripening, after you exhaust that, you go up to your next level, and you'll look at your next level within there. So, for example, the next level of ripeness might be route density. If I have a Class A office building, and right next to it there's a shopping center, although I'm not going after shopping centers, I might be able to service that account effectively because it falls right within the needs of it falls right within the radius of my work area. It's right next door. I can take the equipment from point A, the resources from point A, and move them into point B. Okay, so that's a good way to look at your target market. The next is who really values your service, and this is important. You know, that the word value. You know, everybody's out there looking for a snow contractor, but who really values the proposition that you put forth as to the quality of the service and the thought process that goes into your snow operations. So essentially, some clients value services more than others. Some clients, value service just based on price. It's the low price gets the word. Other clients are going to value it on risk management. You know, how well are you going to do minimizing risk within their properties? To their guests, their office tenants, or their residents. These are very important things. So, one of the things that you need to think about is you need to identify what type of clients do you want, and will they value your services, and will they be happy to essentially pay your fees. And there's some big differences out in the marketplace of rates and how much people pay for snow removal services. And a lot of what drives that, what drives its market, but what drives it more is really the value proposition and how those services, how those clients are actually educated on the services. And I'm finding now that more clients are willing to pay a little bit more based on the value proposition, the risk management, the proactive communication, your ability to mobilize quickly and efficiently and execute quickly and efficiently. So when they come in the next morning, their parking lots are clear and black pavement and so on and so forth. So you really want to determine who values your services and how do we build a relationship with them. So the next thing is competition. Everybody has competition because anybody who has a plow is competition. So the goal really is to eliminate your competition by understanding, again, having your client understand that value proposition and they're lessening their choice. So for an example, one of the things we work with our clients on, we put together a booklet of how do you pre-qualify a quality snow contractor, maybe versus a contractor who maybe is operating at a different level than you. So we've created this, and I've seen these out in the market, but basically you're helping, okay, whether you get the job or not, you're helping the property manager or the asset manager or the owner, manager, whatever. You're helping them, give them a cheat sheet of questions that they can ask the people that they're interviewing to see, are these people a good choice to have in the RFP process, the request for proposal process, or the pricing process. And essentially, if they bring 3 or 6 people in, a document like that might help get that down to 2 or 3 companies. But again, the end of the day, your job as a snow contractor is not to sell your client. It's to educate your client on the value of the service that you bring and how you solve their problems better than anybody else. And if you do that, you become the obvious choice. And I go back to, do you want to be a good company or do you want to be a great company? And I believe that if you take some of the tips that we're presenting today and you start isolating your mindset as to what type of company you are and what your strengths and weaknesses are within your organization, you can actually leverage those strengths and weaknesses to new heights by learning, what they are and then turning them into an advantage point for you over your competition. Also, learning about your competition, what their strengths and weaknesses are, is also very important. So, different types of contracts and the advantages and disadvantages. We're going to kind of go over this relatively quickly. I want to try to be cognizant of everybody's time here. We have allocated an hour for this presentation. We go a few minutes over. I hope you'll stick with us. But eventually, there's different types of contracts, and depending on the different types of contracts, there are benefits on the different types of winters you have versus a heavy snow winter or a light snow winter. But the idea is to develop a contract mix that allows you to keep your key employees employed during the winter time and can allow you to keep your lights on without becoming cash starved. You got to remember, as I say here, there's no right or wrong. It's really, it's in the end, it's what's best. It best suits you as a company, and what best suits your client. And the idea is to develop what we call the win-win relationship. And the win-win relationship is the client allows you to make money and perform your services well in consideration of your business model. And in return of that consideration, there's things that they can do for you. One of those things are potentially they're not going to bid you out every year. They're not going to nickel and dime you too much on your snow bills and so on and so forth. But the goal is to create a win-win relationship, a real strategic partnership with your clients is the goal. So snow pricing is different in all markets across the United States and Canada, folks. I have a couple of clients up in the Greater Toronto area, and I help with them with their snow bids. I have a lot of clients in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, and clients in the Midwest. And in every market, these clients have different types of contracts or a multitude of contracts. Again, it's all market driven by what we're going to call market standards. What I talk to my clients on is just because an RFP comes in that they want the price, per push, based on an inch increment, it doesn't mean that there aren't other options that you can offer them. So what we suggest is in presenting to your clients, one of the things that you want to present to them is, how can you better manage their financial budgets in the wintertime by potentially, being receptive to looking at a different type of contract. So again, we talk a lot about educating the clients. You gotta, a lot of our clients are constantly in sales mode. They're always selling, and what we say is educate, educate, educate. Explain to your clients the different types of contracts, create the value proposition for them, and again, while you're doing that, you want to build it so it works best for your company. Help them create budget certainty for the client while creating guaranteed snow revenue for yourself. Budgets. I mean, a lot of property managers are reluctant to share, what their budgets are. Some do, but the ones that share their budgets will really put you into a position of becoming a better strategic partner with them, because the idea is not to tap the budget. The idea is to manage the budget to the budget, and or bringing them some savings to the budget, and that essentially will kind of make you look like a hero if you can do that. At the same time, if you can develop a snow solution for them that works within the budget and create some guaranteed revenue for yourself, that's certainly a big win. So focus on contract structure. On the solutions, we have 4 different suggestions that we say that we want you to focus on. Next week, operationally, we're going to get a little bit more into some of the industry standards and what, a little bit more of a drill down on what those are. But the first one is risk management. Your goal as a snow contractor is to minimize risk for your client and again, their tenants or guests or visitors to their properties. Minimize the slip and falls that are potentially there. The next one is the contract deliverables. How do you deliver those services to the client in an effective way, not only externally through your operational service delivery model, but internally, how you manage the relationship from a paperwork standpoint, how timely you get your bills out and things like that. Quality control, pre-storm preparativeness, post-storm follow-up and operational performance and communication. These are all great solution points. And again, the last one being budgetary requirements. Propose, a cost-saving solution. Every client that I meet with, I ask them, would you be receptive to receiving an alternate suggestion on how we might be able to save money on your snow removal? And Philadelphia, where I did snow removal for many, many years, it's a big area where it's either time and materials or it's a per push type structure. I introduced to some condominiums in one of the areas that we worked within up in the Lehigh Valley, some fixed contract scenarios where they pay one price for the winter, and we put some clauses in there to help minimize risks, not only for them, but also for the company. But I'll tell you, one of the years we didn't have any snow, and we were collecting money that contributed to paying our overhead for the winter based on that proposed cost-saving solution. So they saved a little bit of money, and I was getting money when I wasn't really earning it unless it snowed, which was a real win-win for us, client and contractor. Simplicity. We have a term at GreenMark Consulting Group, and that is KISS. If anybody doesn't know what that term means, and I'm sure you do, it's keep it simple, stupid. In our presentation, from an etiquette standpoint, we say simplicity, essentially. Don't overcomplicate what doesn't need to be complicated. So design your service delivery model to be simplistic, clear and concise, not only contractually but also operationally, and you'll find some real advantages in doing that. Good, so now we're going to get into just a brief overview of some of the different types of contracts. And again, some of this information is basic information. I will tell you, the information's basic, but more importantly is how do you apply it to your business? And how do you apply it in a blend that gives you the advantages to build a better balanced snow model, again, to keep the lights on during the winter and keep your key people working. So the first type of contract we talk about is the per push or the occurrence contract. We have the per event contract. We have the seasonal contract, which is essentially like an insurance policy. You're going to pay X amount of dollars for the year. And then you have the hourly contract, which is, hey, look, you put a truck on the lot, you work 5 hours, we're going to pay you. So these are the four primary contracts. There's deviations to each contract as how they're customized for the relationship and or the solution. But this is essentially the four contracts that you'll find across the country that people are using. Now we'll talk a little bit more about the drill down, on these contracts. So the per push contract is also known as in most markets as a per occurrence contract. I will tell you from experiences, there's some contract language can be misconstrued or not clear with this as to really what is a per push and what is a per occurrence. So, but it typically, it's billed per service on an inch increment. And in theory, it's every time the truck puts the snowplow down and pushes, you're getting paid. Now that would be for a full cycle. Okay, so the service standards typically are dictated by the managing agent, and a lot of times the contractor doesn't have control. So the managing agent will tell you, hey, look, I don't want the property, over serviced. Come in, give it a push, take off the 3 inches. We'll let it accumulate some more, and then maybe you come back in. Where some contracts per push have almost perpetual. They want you there doing multiple pushes throughout a snow increment, and this is where some of the challenges come in with these relationships. So there's I've seen some contract where there's some ambiguous language on how this is interpreted, and what I suggest is that you read the language carefully, and if you're writing the contract, that you word it carefully. One of the challenges is that there's no really good way to certify what happens every time you push. You can get a certified snow report from a couple of the WeatherWorks and a couple of good other companies that are out there, of how much snow fell within a given of time or within a snow period, 24-hour period. They can tell you the conditions in that time, but sometimes you can't actually tell how many inches fell or was on the ground when he actually pushed. So what we recommend with the per push contracts, some of the things that you can do is you can do what we call a full service, which will be a full plow. You can do a partial service or a partial of a partial. So full service is you're clearing the whole site. A partial service might be a snow that's during the day. Maybe you're just clearing the drive lanes and maybe the parking lanes within the shopping center. And sometimes, a partial might be, just half of what that is. But at the end of the day, you want to be very, very clear with what that language reads, because sometimes billing disputes do arise with these types of contracts. So some of the risks involved in a per push contract, there's no real budget for the client. There's no guaranteed revenue, for the contractor. You're subject to, how many times you push and when you push, and it's tied to whether it snows or it doesn't snow. The liability side, the client can do the client can say what they want you to do versus you doing what should be done. So that's a potential risk. Contractors potentially over service the account. A lot of times they'll go in there and they'll do multiple pushes, and they'll bill the client, and the client's going to come back and say, you pushed too many times. We could have held back on some of these pushes. You could have pushed one time and let the snow stop and come back in the end of the storm and cleaned it up. So you got to be very careful that you don't overservice these types of accounts. When you overservice an account, what happens? A client contract gets canceled, and the customer feels that they've been taken advantage of. So the client, a lot of times in these cases, dictates to you when to service the account and when not to service the account based on their budget, not based on the risk. And what happens is the contractor then potentially is underservicing it based on those directions, and it increases the risk for the snow contractor from a liability standpoint. So you want to really mitigate that. Some of the rewards: if the client allows you to manage, with integrity and safety, everybody wins. If you map out the per push contract language well, if you establish a standard of how you're going to perform it, and they let you do it, it's win-win. The client's not going to feel that they're taking advantage of. They're going to, the budget's going to work for them. The budget's going to work for you. It's a win-win. Set the contract expectations and deliverables up front early, because it's critical to resolve it up front. If you try solving a snow billing issue, a week or 2 or 3 weeks or a month after a snow event happens, that most people go into amnesia mode and they forget about it. So with the per push contract, here's just a standard what it might look like. It might say services will be provided in accordance with the scope of work, including all labor, materials, tools, and equipment, and you have some rates in here, 2 to 4 inches, 4 to 6. You have a price for it. And then, again, depending on, how you're going to qualify this, how many times are you going to push within the increment? Are you going to wait for the storm to stop and push? Is it going to be 2 pushes, between the 2 and 4? These are all things that are subject to negotiations. I also like to put in my snow contracts pricing for salting applications, for a full application, a partial application for paved areas, or maybe just the drive lane. So here's kind of a quick example for this. And anybody who wants samples of contracts, we have samples, we'll be more than happy to share with you. Excuse me. Okay, the next contract is a per event, and the price per event contract is suitable for all different types of storms and clients. If it's snowing all day and the snow's going to accumulate all day long, this means that you own it. You're going to be there for the entire event. You're going to be plowing multiple times. You might be salting multiple times through the day, but you're going to do what you have to do to keep that property safe based on the per event. So it's typically an all-inclusive price. Now, what is the per event? These are things that, again, you can qualify. It could be, per event could be a full storm over a 24-hour period. A per event, where you have to be careful is if the storm goes over 24 hours, you might be entitled to some additional money if you put those clauses in there, which I have done. Sometimes you'll get back-to-back storms, and there's some confusion of is it 1 storm or 2 storms. So you have to have some definition of really, what's the difference of the breaking point of 1 storm to 2 storms, or if a snowstorm goes to a sleet and ice storm. So again, you have to be careful with your contract language. But essentially, in the per event contract, you own it. So some of the risks, you're responsible for what it takes. Prolonged storms can be very costly to a contractor. If you've got equipment running on that job site all day, and you have labor sitting on that job site, shoveling walks all day, while the business is open, you're going to be incurring some big costs. You have to roll with the storm. Waiting till the storm is over is not going to fly in these type of contracts. So you're going to have to, work the storm with your resources. Poor operational structure, lack of leadership on the team. I will tell you, things will get out of control very, very fast. So in managing these types of contracts, you have to staff them correctly. You have to have very, very good operational plans in place. And if you do, they will be storms that you can manage within your production hour guidelines and your target margin guidelines. Rewards of these. Customers are happy that they pay for only what they receive. Typically, there's some post-storm work that's involved, so maybe some snow stacking or relocation, maybe some ice checks or pre-salting. These things commonly are considered over and beyond the standard per event contract. So again, depending on the contract you write, sometimes it has this language built in, sometimes it doesn't. In my contracts, I like to have these things as extras. The service scope is easy to define. There's very, very little billing confusion with these types of contracts. It's per event, per inch increment for the snow cycle. You get in, you get out, you send them a bill. Very, very easy. And again, one of the, I did very, very well with this in one very large snow operation that we ran is, you have good snow operational procedures, good operational execution. These jobs can be very, very well executed and very, very profitable. And setting goals and metrics for your team, production times to work within are very, very easy on these types of jobs for the most part. So if you can operate within those that information that you have on the production times and you can execute on it, it can be a real win type contract. And here's just an example of a per event contract. So basically there's a fee service per storm. I know the screen moves a little bit fast there, and I apologize for that. I'll get back to that. So there's a per price per event, with a fixed price. And then we typically include in there a hourly rate or metrics for additional work that is extra. A lot of times these contracts today will require a certified snow report. We use WeatherWorks as an example. A lot of people are familiar with them. So a lot of this language is often in the RFP that they want verification of how much snow fell during that event. What you want to do is you want to eliminate inch increments from being questioned, salting applications that are too often. Proactive communication really, really helps in these type of situations. And again, the time and material extra page is great. If you have anything over out of scope, you get to do some snow piling, or you have some extra work that they want you to come back and do, a lot of times you can kick into your time and material rate schedule. Black and white verbiage should be included. It's not a difficult contract to manage from, so it's one of the preferred contracts that a lot of people like in certain markets. The next one is seasonal, and the seasonal contract is very nice because it offers stability, and that's what a lot of contractors want during the course of the winter. They want cash flow stability. So in three types of contracts, so what we use here is we have the fixed contract that has a locked price, and the locked price is like an insurance. You pay X amount of dollars for your car insurance per year, and God forbid you get in no accidents. You might pay the insurance for 10 years and nothing happens until the one time it happens, and then you have a claim. In this situation, it's kind of the same mindset with the owner. You're going to pay me to be on your site at first flake, and we're going to do whatever it takes to manage your property. And you're going to pay me one price for doing that. Now, the expectation, the term that's used is zero tolerance, which means blacktop. People want to see blacktops and clear sidewalks. So you're going to have to work, aggressively to make sure you deliver that, by 6 or 6:30 in the morning or whatever that opening standard is. But the client expectation, especially in the Mid-Atlantic states on these type of contracts, is when they pull in the morning, they want blacktop. You can also have a seasonal contract that has a cap. You can say, it's included, 24 inches of snow are going to be included per year. So in some markets, again, I know of a friend of mine up in Philadelphia, he puts a seasonal cap on his fixed contracts of 24 or 26 inches for the year. And if it goes beyond that, then they have to pay, additional monies based on either time and materials or an inch increment type scenario, whether it's per push or per event. Sometimes in these contracts, you can put a duration clause in them that anything over 24 hours will be extra, and then you can put a cap on that. I used to do that. So it was an all-inclusive, contract. If it snowed over a 24-hour duration and it was going to take more time, you would say, up to, say, $5,000 would be a contract cap for that. So again, you custom tailor this to what works best for your company. So the risks, ebbs and flows of the snow seasons. Some winter you might win, and some winters you might lose. You get a winter like last year, you're on a fixed contract, and you get one storm with 32 inches. Some guys did really well with that because they were under their threshold for the year, and some people took a beating on it because it was one big storm, and it cost them a lot to execute on it. They would have been better off with 2 or 3 small storms. So again, these contracts you typically want to do on a 3-year term with your client. Next one is operationally, you have to run these contracts very efficiently. The more efficient you run them, the better the results, the service delivery results, and the more profitability you're going to have. Your gross margins will be typically higher. They could be equipment intensive. Your client might tell you they want staged equipment. Some of these sites you might have to have a C box with materials stored on site. You might have to keep a salt pile on site. You might have to keep 1 or 2 trucks on site or a machine on site. They want you there at first site. Mobilization the night before commonly is not acceptable, but again, geographically or depending on the needs of the client, there's some flexibility there. The client can come back and ask you for some discounts if it doesn't snow. Folks, I'm from New York, and I used to have some contracts like this, and we went through a couple winters with snow, and the customer came back to us and said, you know what, it didn't snow this year. We would like to get some of our money back. And my first reaction was, that doesn't work with the insurance when you pay your insurance for multiple years on your building and you never have a claim, so why does it apply to us? So these are real things that do happen. That might be something you might want to discuss with the client. If it's of concern, you think it'll be of concern, you might want to have that conversation with them. The next is the rewards of a fixed contract. People, the bottom thing is guaranteed monthly income helps balance your winter cash flow. If you have money coming every single month that you can use for paying your overhead, your key people working, maybe making some infrastructure improvements or some recapitalization or keeping the lights on, it's a great way to keep things moving forward. It again helps stabilize your workforce. It helps pay for equipment. If you're going out and you don't own the equipment, you're going to rent the equipment. Having a fixed contract will help offset, maybe some monthly payments for equipment that's sitting on a job. And again, if you manage it effectively, you can have some good snow margins on it. I know we're running a little bit long on time here, but we're getting close to the end. Seasonal contracts, here's what it is. An example, cost for the year, here it shows, $36,000, $255,000, no cap. Your payment's going to be paid in 5 equal installments. It's very common that these payments are amortized depending on where you are. It can be anywhere between 4 and 6 months. And on this one, we show an option. If we put a 24-inch cap in the seasonal contract, we could do your job for $27,400. So that might be a little bit of an incentive. Remember, risk and reward. You look at the 3-year average. You see what the 3-year average is. The client who maybe never used a seasonal contract might choose an option for this. And then on the seasonal contract, look, if there's something over and beyond the normal scope of work and they want you to do it additionally, you always put in an hourly rate fee schedule for that. Now, I do want to tell everybody, as you're looking at these numbers on here, these numbers, I don't exactly recall. I would say these numbers are probably about 6 to 7 years old. They were probably used in the Philadelphia market at that time. They're not actually reflective of a lot of what today's pricing is. So don't be writing those things down and putting out bids tomorrow. So seasonal contract, most important thing is the trigger is typically at first flake. The contractor is typically responsible, all-inclusive, for all plowing, sidewalks, and salting applications as necessary. Typically, in these contracts, you have to push and pile within the same operation. If there's any heavy stacking or relocation, most often you can get a customer to pay for this additionally, not all the time, but many times. The type of contract, when's it run? Geographically, some areas in the country, it's November 1st through April 1st. Some areas, it's October 15th through May 1st. Everywhere it's different. Payments, again, are amortized. Key 2 to 3 year contracts. You want to keep your contract in place for 2 to 3 years. And again, flexibility in the contract language. You could customize this language with the client to their needs and make this a win-win for yourself. Okay. So now we go on over here, hourly, and I call the hourly the win big or lose. I will tell you that hourly contracts are very popular in some markets. And this contract typically requires the same level of service as a seasonal contract. Some of these jobs you have to have equipment sitting there. Sometimes you can mobilize it in early, but basically you get paid for when it snows. And it's hourly work, sometimes requires check-ins with on-site security of property managers or via a technology platform. Quick story, sold 2 Amazon distribution centers here in Virginia, pitched to Amazon. These are 1.5 million square foot distribution centers, pitched to them 3 or 4 different ways that we wanted to manage their snow and manage their contracts. They absolutely refused to do anything other than an hourly contract. And I had to invest a significant amount of money having that equipment sitting on the site all winter, praying that it would snow to pay for it. Luckily, as I knock on wood on my desk, luckily it did snow and we did make a significant amount of money on it. But there are some risks involved with it. Number 1 risk, no snow, no pay. Client can question, control, manipulate, and examine every minute how you're performing the services. Again, these Amazon sites, we had to check in with security when we were there. We had to check out. A lot of facilities today, folks, have cameras, so they're looking at you. A lot of companies today are using technology, whether it's GPS or different types of programs for tracking when you're on a property. And a lot of companies are doing their snow billing and timesheet recording. These are all things that customers potentially want to see. The reward, you get paid for what you do, and essentially, if you're getting paid for what you do, you'll cover all your costs. So that's a positive thing. Hourly contract, here it is. Again, it's no different than everything else. It has some hourly rates. Typically, the hourly contracts are first flake, or sometimes they'll say we don't want you there between 2 inches. What I've noticed in a lot of times when you put 2 inches in your contract, a lot of times the property manager will be calling you and saying, why aren't you on the site? My trigger point's always first flake. Contractor typically uses his judgment for the operational activities. Typically, you're plowing, stacking, and even relocating in one operation because, again, you don't want to over-service the account based on the hourly rates or take advantage. There's a term that some contractors use. They call it maximizing the billing. I do not believe in that philosophy. I believe in building the partnership and executing efficiently as possible on the job. So if that includes doing 3 tasks in one, that's what we do. If you're not using a technology platform, paperwork is much more labor intensive to manage. So if you watch my presentation next week, I'm going to show you a $5 to $6 million snow operation with over 150 pieces of equipment. When I started there, it was all paper. and we had probably 300 laborers working, a couple hundred pieces of equipment working on top of service providers. The intake of paperwork was tremendous. It took me 2 years to get all the paperwork processed down before we went to a technology platform, but it could be labor intensive. Usually it's very competitive price, so the price is the price per hour. If the property manager is going to buy in price, it's black and white. They're going to compare your price to everybody else's. A lot of times these contracts do require some staging. Not all the time, but many times they do require staging, so you have to be cognizant of that. And the last is clients are watching. They're watching through GPS. If you're providing it, they're watching through their cameras. And at the end of the day, the contractors want accurate billing. So some closing points as we close in on here. I know we're 12 minutes after the hour, and I apologize for that. So we're wrapping it up now. So essentially, we presented you, several contract options to choose from. Your market often dictates the type of contract that you'll be proposing. What we're recommending to you is educate your client on options and try to help them build your partnership based on building a sound snow and removal plan for them that includes working with their budget and delivering on an operational need based on risk management. There's an ideal mix that we recommend. And this is only opinion, 60 to 70% of your contracts seasonal, 20 to 30% of your contracts per event, and 10% other. Now, if you are in a market and seasonal contracts are not obtained at 60 to 70%, in your market, you'll flip it. So you might make it 20 to 30% seasonal and 60 to 70% per. But the idea is to try to get an even mix, not even mix, but a mix of contracts in there, so you get some cash flow coming in on a guarantee basis. You have a mix of different contracts that you can perform on, and the idea is it's all balances all out. The balance of several types of contracts, again, allows for the positive cash flow in the light winters and additional revenue in the heavy winters. So doing some analysis of your previous winter's billing cycles or pro forma and the types of contracts you have is good. I just did this with a client up in Maryland. He was tossed between, do I self-perform some contracts internally or work with a third-party management? He had some really good financial information. We took the financial information. We took how many inches snow fell in the last 2 years. We came up with an analysis, and we determined a solution for him of which relationship he should pursue with this year. And he decided, I believe, to do more self-performing snow than working for a management company because the margins would be higher. Next, your seasonal sales should be structured to keep the lights on. Again, I keep on talking about that because it's so important. And again, your remaining per event and hourly contract should balance out for those heavier winters on the overages on your seasonal contracts, and ideally bring you some additional revenue to help balance those profit margins. And again, using the above methods and ratios, you have to figure out what works best for your company. So we recommend going back and looking at your pro forma from previous years, looking at your market trends of how these services are being provided. You have to look at market competitiveness of how other contractors are doing it, and then build a solution best for your company. One of the last points one of the two last points I want to talk about is essentially subcontract or not subcontract. And I got to tell you, there's really good advantages and there's some really disadvantages to this. So the subcontracting could be a good advantage if you have additional resources that you want to allocate that are surplus. You can put them out to work for somebody else. It could bring you steady work and helps you build good relationships. If that's one option. Option two is if you do not want to get involved in procuring your own contracts, you have a bunch of equipment that you're able to put to work, whether it's plow trucks, spreaders, laborers, wheel loaders, graders. You can there's plenty of companies who are looking for good, reliable service providers. You give them a rate sheet, and they will tell you, that's fine, we'll accept those prices. You sign a contract with them. So there's big advantages. A lot of these national companies out there, I refer to them as the integrated snow companies. they're looking for snow providers. And, does it work for you? You have to determine whether it makes sense for your business. A lot of times these guys will give you a price sheet with a schedule on it, and they'll tell you, can you, do the work for this price? I will tell you as a third party is a lot of times when you get these pricing schedules, there's margins of upwards of 30% that they can increase the pricing on those schedules with. So they're going in with the low numbers, they're trying to buy it cheap, negotiate with them, and if you can get the numbers to come up higher, you get the numbers to come up higher. And again, I say, anywhere from 20 to 30% on that, and negotiate the terms. One of the things that you have to do with these subcontract agreements, folks, you have to read these contracts, you have to reread them. A lot of these contracts have language in there that is, you will not get paid until they get paid. And for a small contractor, that can lead to major cash flow problems. They also like to use these contractors to sometimes unintentionally and sometimes intentionally to delay payments or take advantage in a way that maybe you're not used to. Meaning, you have to make sure that if they have a policy and procedure of documentation, that you have to follow that policy and procedure to a T. If you don't, it potentially can default your payment, and that potentially is a problem because you'll have executed and performed work and will not get paid for it. So, working with nationals, my opinion is, I do believe there's some value. It can definitely fill some operational gaps within your business, but you have to make sure it makes sense for you and your business model. So in closing, I'll say be cautious on these relationships. A lot of the snow portals, if you go onto Facebook, and it's very interesting, there's some really good snow groups on Facebook, a lot of different size contractors, but if you could say, I'm interested, I got a solicitation from integrated service company A, B, and C, what are your thoughts? You might be surprised of some of the responses that you get, but it might help you form an opinion that might keep you from going broke. So I would suggest looking into that as an option for you making your decision on the risk and reward scale. So how do you become the clear and obvious choice as we wind down here? It's very simple. You got to listen to your clients' pain points. It's like what I do with my clients. I ask them, what are the biggest pain points within what we call the 4 cores of business success within your business model, and then you drill down on that. And the top pain points essentially for clients are scope of work, pricing, billing, and other services. And what you want to do is you want to educate your client on the best management practices and alleviate these pain points. So it goes back to risk management. How are you going to make their job easier by delivering them a cleaner parking lot and minimizing risk for their guests, their residents, their visitors, their tenants? How do you do your preseason planning? Is critical. Next week we're going to go into preseason planning, but when do you start your interaction with the client in talking about how you're going to manage the snow operations in the wintertime? Preseason planning is everything starting from a conversation to photographing or videographing or taping what the site conditions are at the site currently, mapping out the site, the snow execution plan, and then reviewing that plan with the client. And then the in-season operations, how are you going to execute on it? How do you communicate with the client very proactively to let them know? I have one gentleman I know very, very well now, and he sends out a great email blast to all his clients, 24 hours before a snowstorm, that a storm's impending, here's our strategy. He gives those clients an email blast during the storm of how things are going. And I'll tell you, when that email blast goes out, how the storm is going, if things aren't going well, he's relatively transparent. He'll say, things aren't going well, but here's our plan to fix it, to give the client confidence, because if the client's seeing something different than they're expecting, he's reassuring them that he's in control, and then what they can expect the following morning. So in-season operations are very important. And then post-season closure is, how do you end the season out? How do you leave the site swept clean, the property damage fixed if there's any property damage, and so on and so forth. And some of these things we're going to really drill down next week on the presentation on the operational side of this. Okay, so discussing with the contractor the selection process, nothing the matter with asking the person you are engaging with, what is your selection process for procuring this contract and awarding it, okay? So asking them is showing them that you're interested in learning their thought processes of how they're going to buy these services. So again, there's different tools and resources, brand collateral that you can present to these people. And again, we'll give you some contact information, and we have some of these things available to you in toolkits and some marketing pieces that we can give you that might help you in your business. Again, when you engage with your client, ask questions, provide clear, concise answers for them. Do not overcommit yourself. Do not oversell. Become a trusted advisor to the client. That essentially will build deeper relationships with your clients. You'll provide for more trust. It'll probably eliminate some of the selection processes of other people who were at the table with you before, and it'll help develop the win-win situation. When you put it all together, you want to develop a sound scope of work. So just because, again, there's an RFP or a scope of work that a client wants you to bid to, offer suggestions. You can ask them if they'll be receptive to it. If they're not receptive to offering an answer, or you think they're apprehensive in asking for that, you can also give it to them as an option. And you can graciously say, you know, we've taken the liberty to present you an option to help, maybe work with your budget a little bit better and save you money based on this approach that we're taking. Develop your value proposition into your brand collateral. You know, at the end of the day, what you do is you want to leave a strong impression over your client versus your competitor. There's some good analysis that you can do on this. A SWOT analysis, as it's referred to, is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You can find a SWOT analysis form online, or you can contact us and we'll give it to you. But what I recommend to our clients when we go in, we look at their top 3 to 6 competitors within landscape and snow, and we work together to develop what are their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We compare it to our company, our client company, and then we look at our weaknesses and we determine how do we turn our weaknesses into our strengths, and we look at their weaknesses and how do we turn them into the strengths for us and leverage it against them, essentially. So some good thoughts. Okay, so the next one is very important. You know, we all like to sell work, and we do it, and sometimes we take on stuff which we see, you know, dollar signs in our eyes. You might not, you know, have all the contracts that you want this year, so you might overcommit and say, hey, you know, a customer calls you and says, oh yeah, I can take that on, and you take on a project that ultimately you might not be able to handle. And the reason you do it is most contractors, or many contractors, I should say, just have an attitude of figure it out. Bottom line, I've been in this for 40 years. I'm sure a lot of my guests have been in the landscape industry, snow industry for many years. We're figure it out type of people. Okay, and we usually do it successfully. But at the end of the day, our industry is becoming more sophisticated. Expectations are coming, more clearer as regulations are coming into place and new technologies coming into place. So our audience is becoming much more sophisticated. So figuring out, you know, is not really the best way to do it anymore. You got to know that you have to sometimes realize that there's some bad business out there, and bad business is you're not prepared to take it. And if you go back to what we discussed about, you know, the questions and asking yourself questions and coming up with answers, you know, one of the exercises that we say to you is do the same exact thing. Does it fit my snow plan or my demographic region? That's a question. It has an answer. Do the numbers really work? It's late in the year. They haven't procured the contract. Well, maybe the prices are too cheap. You know, do they really work for me? Do I have the assets or the reserve assets to perform this work? Do not overcommit and stretch yourself. You got to remember, there are breakdowns. Things do happen. Sometimes if they say it's going to be a 3 to 6 inch storm and it turns out to be an 8 to 12 inch storm, that's heavy, wet snow. So you have to be very careful with that. Do I have the material resources, and are the material resources in adequate supply if the demand of the winter is more than what's expected? Do I have sufficient labor and cash flow to support the work? I have clients who have run into situations where they've taken on too much work and their snow guys are beating at the door wanting their paychecks sooner than later. So especially if you're using seasonal snow help. So you have to make sure that you have adequate cash to pay your people, adequate payroll, funds for payroll, I should say. So if you answer no to any of these, it's bad business. Don't take it on. Because at the end of the day, if you say no to that client today and you explain to them and you say, it's not a good fit for me today, and this is the reason why, it could be a great fit for you and for them later on. So it's better to say, no, I can't do it right now. This is the reason why, so you don't fail, but take it on in the future when you can succeed. And what you can say to that client is, listen, we are overcommitted for this year, or I'm not comfortable taking it on for these reasons, but if you run into a jam and you can call me and I'm available, I'll help you out. I will tell my guest on this show today that I have won significant work using this model, and when somebody would call and say, I need help, I happened to be in the position to help them, and I became the hero. And when I became the hero, I was able to build that hero status into long-term relationships that were very, very strong win-win type relationships. Okay? So give some thought to that. Okay, so here's my little bit of a sales pitch here. It's very, very light. I just want to tell you briefly about our organization. So if you're looking to improve your company, we have different ways we work with our clients in improving landscape and snow companies of all sizes. Again, we work with companies that are $350,000 to $1 million. It's a very holistic approach that we use. We have different ways of entering in your company and the relationship. We do what's called an organizational assessment, where we come into your company, we evaluate it, and we tell you what's working well, what's not working, what's working well, what's working and might need to get tweaked, and what's not working at all. We will do a 1-hour phone consultation with you. You'll share your pain points with us. You'll get to learn a little bit about us. We'll get to learn a little bit about you. And if it's you wanted to explore the organizational assessment process, we will give you a 15% discount on that process. And we have a defined process. Like I said, it's a 1-hour phone consultation. It's a follow-up with a document which really explains what an organizational assessment is. We have done multiple of these organizational assessments, and the clients that who really understand and buy into the purpose and the value of them are growing their companies upwards of 12 to 15%. They're improving their bottom lines anywhere from 12 to 20%, and the companies are growing organizationally from a mindset standpoint, which transfers into a culture, a better, stronger culture, which trickles down to the whole process right down through the service delivery model. So that's one option to enter in with us as a relationship. The next one is we have a great business coaching package we launched about 2 months ago. And you can go on our website at GreenMark Coaching, and essentially our Jumpstart package, our business growth package, our peak performance package, these packages have time that you're buying with myself and my partner Bill and Lori, depending on what your touch points are. And in these, what you're going to do is you're going to get a block of time for us where we interact with you. It's a very interactive process. We have about 15 active clients on these at different levels. But we do everything from monthly accountability calls or biweekly accountability calls. Clients will call us and for help with writing a job description, to reviewing a bid, to helping them create a strategic plan. So we work with them depending on the type of package that you purchase. This is designed where you have the resources of somebody outside of your company who's going to be just give you an outside perspective of how they see things. We're not going to be right all the time. What we want to do is we basically want to share our thoughts with you, and then we don't always want you to agree with us, but we want you to do is essentially challenge your thinking and say, look, there's other options, other ways to think about this. You know, is this something that's possible for you to consider? And these packages, because you listened today, we're going to discount them down so you can see we have some savings. So, for a small contractor, for, $82 a month, you can have a seasoned, industry professional or a business professional or a social media professional available for you. And depending on the level package that you have is the level of service. So we encourage you to visit our website. We would love to work with you. And right now, through October 21st, if you sign up for one of these sites, you'll get the 1 month free, which is what this equates to. So if there's any questions and answers, Lori, if you can open it up quick for any questions and answers for our guests.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions? I see we still have about 17 people online. Anybody have any quick questions we can answer for you?
Where can we find contract examples?
Okay, so if you email me what we ask you to do is if you go to www.greenmarkgroup.com, and if you go to our resource page and just sign up for our mailing list, and we will not spam you. We do put out a bi-weekly newsletter, but it'll give you your contact information. You can contact us as a contact form, and you can say, I would like examples of snow contracts. I will send you examples of snow contracts, and I will also get on the phone with you and discuss those contracts with you and give you some guidance on your questions. Fair enough? Any other questions, Lori?
Nope.
Good. I appreciate everybody's time today. I apologize. We went 32 minutes over. We welcome you to go to our websites and check out our GreenMark Bootcamp platform, our coaching platform, and our GreenMark group platform. I wish everybody a wonderful Wednesday, an enjoyable evening, and a great rest of the week. And we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll be talking about the operational side of the snow business. So everybody, thank you very much. We appreciate your attendance today and have a great evening.